Hi, I'm Elaine, and this is an ukulele tutorial for Burn from Hamilton. If you're looking for a play-along video, you can check out the other video that I made. Now, this song isn't the easiest to learn, however you can break it up into the chords and then the strum pattern. For the chords, I would suggest looking at the chord chart linked in the description. That will show you what chords are used in which sections. Additionally, the site has a feature where if you click Simple instead of Original, it'll show you simplified versions of chords. This will change how the chords sound, so you might have to play around with it to find the right balance there. The second thing that's a little bit tricky is learning the rhythm and the picking patterns. To explain this, first I'm going to go over the strum pattern used in the song. This is the foundation of the rhythm for the picking pattern. Second, I'll go over the picking pattern used. Third, I'll go over the riff. This is the bit you hear at the beginning of the song as well as in the verses. And then finally, I'm going to go over the chords used in each section of the song. And again, I would suggest looking at the chord chart if you want to go over which chords are used where. First, I'm going to go over the rhythm and strum pattern used. The important thing to keep in mind about the rhythm for Burn is that there are 6 beats per measure. Now typically a lot of songs you'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. However, for Burn you would be counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'll explain how this fits together with the strum pattern. The strum pattern I use for the song is down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, where the first 2 down, up are louder than the third down. And so the way that you would count it out is you would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I would suggest just taking some time to practice the strum pattern by itself on open strings. And the nice thing is, if you understand the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rhythm, you can try just playing the song through with single strums, and once you learn the strum pattern, you can try just playing the strum pattern for the whole song. Now I'm going to go over the picking pattern I use for a lot of the song. Now it's important that you understand the rhythm first, so I would suggest practicing the strum pattern in the previous section first, if you aren't already familiar. So the picking pattern, first, I'm going to go over the finger string assignment. So what I'll do is that my thumb will take care of the G and C strings, my index finger will take care of the E string, and then my middle finger will take care of the A string. With that in mind, I'll show you the picking pattern that I do. So first, I strum all 4 strings with my thumb. Then I pluck the C string with my thumb, E string with my index finger. Then I pluck the E and A strings at the same time with my index and middle fingers using a sort of grabbing motion like this. And then I go back up, so I'll pluck the E string with my index finger, C string with my thumb. So I'll just play that through twice from the top, and it'll sound something like this. So I would suggest just taking some time to practice that on open strings. You should probably carry your ukulele at its normal height, just holding it up for demonstration purposes. I'm going to wrap up this section on picking patterns by talking about split measures on how to handle the split measures in the song. Now, what exactly is a split measure? Recall that a measure in Burn is 6 beats. You can think of a measure as a particular chunk of time in the song. You're subdividing the entire song into smaller sections called measures. Now, typically for ukulele, you'll be playing 1 strum pattern and 1 chord per measure. However, in the case of a split measure, the measure is split between 2 different chords. In practice, this means that you're switching chords in the middle of a strum pattern. So for instance, instead of playing the entire picking pattern on a chord, say D major, you would be switching chords in the middle of the picking pattern. Now I'm going to go over how to play a split measure with the picking pattern. Recall that a split measure is when you're essentially just splitting the measure between two different chords. So the most common split measure that you'll see in Burn is the split measure between D and E minor 7. So I would suggest just making sure you have that chord transition down. I find it easiest to play D with all three of my fingers here, and then all you have to do is lift up your index and ring finger and then move your ring finger to the second fret of the A string. So once you have that down and you know what the picking pattern is by itself, we can put the two of them together. And essentially what you'll do is you'll just play the first part of the picking pattern for each chord. So that'll sound something like this. Again, that would be. Now I'm going to go over how to play the riff in Burn. You'll hear this at the very beginning of the song, in the verses, and in the outro. You also hear this at the very end of the Reynolds pamphlet. Now, before learning this section, I would suggest making sure 1, you know the rhythm, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 counting, and 2, that you've practiced the picking pattern because you will need to know the finger string assignment in order to play the riff. First, I'm going to go over the chords that you need to play the riff. To start, you'll have a B minor chord. This is a bar chord, so I find it helpful to stack my index and my middle finger on the 2nd fret, and then put my ring finger down on the 4th fret of the G string. And then you can slide that up to a F sharp. So my index finger is still barring, and then I take my ring finger and my middle finger and I put them down. And then you have a G major 7. This is essentially just a partial bar of the C, E, and A strings. And then it goes to a D sus4. This is very similar to a D, but I just slide my ring finger over on the E string. So I would suggest just taking some time to make sure you really know those chords and you can transition between them. You have B minor, F sharp, G major 7, and D sus4. Now I'm going to go over how to do the tab and how to modify the chord shape so you get all the notes in the riff. Now, this is going to be mostly in the left hand. Your right hand is doing the same thing it was during the picking pattern, with the exception that you aren't actually using your middle finger to play the A string at all. So starting from the top, we start with a B minor chord. And then the first little bit is the same as the picking pattern, but then you put your middle finger on the 3rd fret of the E string, lift it up, and that's how you get the melody. So again, that would be. And then you repeat the same thing for the next chord as well. So going to an F sharp, you would strum, start the picking pattern, and then you want to hit the 3rd fret of the E string, and this is a bit of a stretch, so you have to put your pinky there, lift it up. So again, we have. And then you just continue doing the same thing. So you have a G major 7, start it off, and then you want to hit the 3rd fret of the E string, so you can use your middle finger. And then you go to a D sus4. And then here you'll want to slide your ring finger up to the 2nd fret of the E string. And then what I do here is I'll lift my index finger up, slide this back down. So again, the last little bit from D sus4 looks something like. With all that in mind, I'll just play through the riff slowly, and you can play along too if you would like. So we'll start and we'll have. I'm going to go over the chords used for various sections of the song. Again, I would suggest looking at the chord chart linked in the description. That way you'll know which one's a verse, which one's a pre-chorus, which one's a chorus, which one's an outro, etc. The other nice thing about the chord chart is that it's interactive, and if you click simple, that can help simplify some of the chords. Essentially what that does is it'll lop off the end of the chord. Now there's two major types of chords, major chords and minor chords, and anything besides that in the chord name is mostly just for decoration. For instance, if you have an F sharp major chord, that's what we learned before, and it looks and sounds something like this. However, you can also have an F sharp major 7th chord, and that looks and sounds something like this. And you'll find that in many cases, instead of stretching to figure out this F sharp 7, you can just play a regular F sharp. And this is true in several other cases as well. I like playing the fancy versions because I think they add a little something and I think it's fun. But you can feel free to modify the song as you'd like. First, I'll go over the chords you need to play the chorus. This is probably the easiest chunk of chords in the song. So you'll start with a D major chord. You'll go to a B minor. Then you go to an F sharp minor. So I play that with a middle finger G string, index finger C string, ring finger on the E string, and then you'll go to a G. And then the picking pattern here is the pattern from before. And so once you practice the chords and the picking pattern, we can put it together slowly. So starting from the top, you'll have For each of the following sections, I'll just go over how to play chords if they're new and we haven't seen them already. Again, if you want to learn the chords, feel free to go back and look over earlier sections of this video. You can also look at the chord chart, or you can pause sections of this video and take your time to practice the chords. Now I'll go over how to play through the first verse of the song. The first bit uses single strums, but the chords are pretty similar to in the riff. So for the first bit, one note there is that I note it as D and then D/C sharp, but all I'm really doing is I'll play a D major chord and then I'll just pluck the C sharp note on the first fret of the C string like this. With that in mind, I'll just play through the verse. The first bit is single strums and then it'll go into the riff, and I'll try to bop my hand so you can see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rhythm. So we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, B minor, F sharp, G, D, E minor 7, B minor, F sharp, G, D, riff, riff, Now I'll go over how to play the second verse. Now the first bit of the second verse, you'll just play the same riff as before, and honestly for the last bit you can just continue playing the same riff, but I just mix up the chords there for fun. So what I do is that I'll start with a B minor, and then there's a split measure between an F sharp minor and an F sharp, and then it goes to a G, and then split measure between D and A. And so for this bit, instead of playing the riff, I'll just go back to the regular picking pattern. So altogether, it'll sound something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So recall that for split measures, I'm just splitting the picking pattern in two. So I'll play the first part of the picking pattern on a D, and then switch and play this first part on an A. Now I'll go over how to play the first pre-chorus. We've already learned a lot of the chords, and it uses the same picking pattern that we've gone over. However, at the very end, I'll switch to a strum pattern before going into the chorus, so I think it's more dramatic. I'll actually show you an easier version of what I do, but if you're curious about the exact chords that I'm playing and when, you can take a look at the chord chart or the ukulele play along. So for the easier version, you'll just need the chords B minor, F sharp, and then G. This happens when Eliza sings in every line for some kind of sign of when you were mine. So I'll just start singing and I'll show you what I do. So for B minor and F sharp, I'll use the picking pattern, and I switch for the strum pattern, play that twice on G before going into the chorus. So from the top you have, in every line, some kind of sign when you were mine. The world seemed to, and then it goes into the chorus. Now I'll go over how to play the second pre-chorus. I use some new chords here, but you can feel free to simplify things, lop off the ends of chords, and just use chords that we've already learned. So the first new chord that I use is an F sharp 7. This one is a little bit trickier to play, but you can think about it as the basic F major chord shape. Moved up a fret, and then you add two frets. So you would add your ring finger on the 4th fret of the C string, and your pinky finger on the 4th fret of the A string. Or if you don't want to bother with that, you can just play a regular F sharp chord that we've gone over a few times. Another new chord that I use here is a G sus2. This is just a G major chord, but without the middle finger on the A string. Then there's a D/G. Now this is more accurate if you have a low G ukulele, but it's just a D major chord, and then lift up the index finger, so that way you have a G as the bass note there. Now I'll just go over some of the new chords that I play in the bridge. Again, the strum pattern is the down, up, down strum pattern. So the new chords that I play are, I play a D augmented. So this one's a little bit funky. You have your pinky on the 3rd fret of the G string, middle finger C string, ring finger the A string, and then index finger on the A string. I'll play in A7 sus4. This sounds fancy, but it's just your middle finger on the 2nd fret of the C string. There's a D sus2, which is like a D chord, but without the ring finger. Then there's a G minor. I play a G minor with a B flat in the bass, which means that I'm also holding down this note here, but you don't have to worry about that really. So if you've made it this far, thanks for sitting through all these different chords. I'll just close with the very last chord in the song, and it's probably my favorite one. So after the outro, it doesn't really feel like the song should resolve. Eliza is pretty unhappy, and so I'll play a B7 sus2. And so this is all the way on the 4th fret, and so what I'll do is I'll put my index finger on the 4th fret of the G string, and then I'll stack my other fingers into like an E minor shape. So pinky finger on the C string, and then ring finger on the E string, and then middle finger on the A string, and so you can end the song just like that. I hope that this video helped you learn Burn from Hamilton. If you're looking for a play along, you can check out the other video that I made. But again, there's quite a lot going on, so I would suggest breaking it down, practicing just the chords, just the strum pattern. You can also play around with the chords to see if anything easier might work. Remember that if you're playing along with single strums, that there's 6 beats for measures, so you should be counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and not 1, 2, 3, 4. If you like this video and you want to see more ukulele videos, please make sure to like and subscribe. You can hit the little bell icon and then you'll get notified whenever I make a new video. I put a new video out every Sunday. Thanks for watching.